Have you been wondering why your voice hasn't got better, even though you've been trying to make it better? So what I mean by that is perhaps you had a bout of a hoarse voice or a bit of a sick voice, and then you've looked after it, you've done all the things, you've rested it, you may have even had a bit of treatment, but it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Well, there's lots and lots of reasons for that. And hopefully, if you're under the guidance of a professional, you'd hopefully get a few more answers. And it's actually not unusual for me to be working with a client or have a referral received, work with a client and think, this doesn't really fit the bill of what the original diagnosis was, or this client's voice isn't getting better as quickly as it should. And that's the value of being under a professional's help, that they can kind of sometimes see things that you might not be aware of. Or very often the client is aware of it and they'll say, I just think it's not getting better. And I never ignore that when people say that to me, apart from the fact that I can almost always tell when there's more progress to be made. Sometimes voice conditions change. For example, they may have received a diagnosis, but over time something else has happened. And in those cases, people need to have a review with an ENT and have it looked at again. Sometimes a second opinion is needed, sometimes just a fresh view. There are things that can exacerbate the original condition, things like reflux, things like stress, really, really sometimes put a big hamper on a voice that's trying to get better, and tiredness and things like that. And because voice is a very holistic phenomena, really that holistic approach to it is really helpful in terms of getting it back on track and getting it as good as it can be. So voices don't always improve in very, very linear fashion. Sometimes other things come and hamper it. Sometimes when they go back to the ENT, they find there's something else going on or something's changed. But all of that information helps us plan the treatment and get the voice back on track as quickly as possible. Sometimes people hope that just resting their voice or maybe having some honey and lemon or something like that is going to make their voice all better. But very often voices get into trouble because of behavioural use patterns or because of certain types of things in lifestyle or events or places you've been to have caused the voice to strain, or you've had to use it in such a way that it wasn't used to. And so one of the things that really helps voice get better is learning how to use it differently according to the demands that you have. So if you have very vocally demanding things to get through, like lots and lots of meetings, or maybe you're a performer, or maybe you're somebody who has to use your voice in a place where you need to cover lots of space, then really it really helps to get some technique training for that. Because just pushing a voice to get louder or just hoping for the best with a voice will not always do the trick. Most people have to be very lucky to have a voice that just works in all contexts. Once you, for example, if you're a teacher, having some voice training is really helpful. Or if you're somebody who does like to go out socializing and usually in noisy places, knowing how to produce a voice that projects safely will really stand you in good stead. Otherwise, people fall into a pattern of sometimes being hoarse, sometimes losing their voice, sometimes their voice is okay. And that becomes the way their voice is. And eventually, sometimes that leads to things like nodules or other problems with the voice. So that's sometimes why people's voices don't get better, is because their lifestyle doesn't really give it a chance to. But mainly it's because they don't have the techniques that would preserve their voice. With my teacher's hat on now, I have to say that some voices don't get much better when they're under therapy because the person finds it difficult to practice. And it is a bit of a commitment to do therapy and to work on your voice. But for things to change, there needs to be a certain amount of motor learning. And that usually happens by doing and repeating. And eventually the hope is that becomes habit. So if someone's been used to straining when they talk, that habit has to be broken. And learning how to get the voice to allow it to flow up and come more freely. So then you'll be able to project your voice in a manner that isn't constrained. And these things can be taught. It takes a little bit of practice. Often, in most cases, most of the practice is actually done in the session with the clinician. So as long as you do your treatment sessions, a lot of that will stick. But some practice outside as well, or in your own time, will just help to make that voice change happen more effectively and more quickly. So why hasn't your voice changed? It can be for many, many reasons. But if you know that you're doing your best and you're under the care of a professional, there's every chance that any voice that didn't work well or stopped working well will go back on track and work very well again. If you found the video helpful, click the like button and subscribe to the channel.